The UCLA men's basketball season's in full swing, and we need you to get to Pauley Pavilion to support the Bruins. Don't miss a single chance to see this year's exciting team, led by Donovan Dent, Eric Daly Jr., Sky Clark, and Tyler Bilodeau. Pauley Pavilion, presented by Westcon Financials, the home of the greatest tradition in all of college basketball. We can't wait to have you join us as the Bruins continue to build on that legacy. With big-time matchups, go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today before it's too late. Let's get Pauley rocking.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We are doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after the Guy Benson Show at 3, and just before the News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Motec on Money, live on the air on 790 KABC, streaming live online worldwide at KABC.com, and the on-demand Motec on Money podcast, KABC.com, Apple iTunes, all your favorite podcast platforms. Record-shattering week for stocks, silver and gold. Bitcoin went on the rebound this week. Treasury note yields ticked higher. Oil wrapping up the week below $60 a barrel in the face of the upheaval in Iran and uncertainty over the political future of Venezuela. A couple of weeks after the U.S. ousted Venezuela's dictator and sent him to New York to face drug charges. The big winner this week, the small cap index, the Russell 2K, which we don't often talk about, but it has burst out of the scene, eking out a gain and beating the S&P 500 for an 11th consecutive session, its longest streak of outperformance of that index since 2008, and now off to the strongest start of the year since 2021. The small cap Russell 2K index is up nearly 8% this year, dwarfing the sub 2% gain seen in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. That kind of a performance for the Russell 2K, usually a very bullish sign. All the major averages still hovering near record highs. The exiled crown prince of Iran urging world leaders to help protesters topple Iran's government. Reza Pahlavi, the U.S.-based opposition figure, calling on the world to target Iran's Revolutionary Guard's leadership as the upheaval in Iran continues. Meanwhile, in Venezuela, the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, reportedly met with the interim president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, in Caracas this week, reinforcing the Trump administration's message that it sees the interim government there as the best path to stability in the country in the short term. It was great seeing everyone, including our great 790 KBC listeners at Angela Marsden's Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill today in Sherman Oaks for the big remote broadcast of the John Phillips Show with Randy Wang, where Susan Shelley, co-host for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association show here on 790 KBC, held a big Save Prop 13 event. You can go to prop13.com for more information about that. The proposed billionaire tax here in California, also a hot topic today and is getting national attention. Later this hour, we'll continue on the tax theme here with Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, who'll be joining me live later this hour. Coming off the Golden Globe Awards last weekend, hot topics continue to be the future of Hollywood and the future of movie theaters in the age of the smartphone and AI. I'll discuss that further with Hollywood PR guru, giant, and author Michael Levine. The Dow coming in for a closing loss today of 83 points. The S&P 500 down 4. The NASDAQ down 15 points. And joining us now on Your Money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works, veteran market strategist Bryan Perry, editor of BryanPerryInvesting.com and author of the 25% Cash Machine. Bryan, thank you so much for taking the call on a very eventful week here, and always great to have you with us. Good afternoon.
Okay, a good Friday to you as well, Frank, and your audience here. We had an interesting week here. A very good start for earnings season here. The big money center banks, they delivered on the promise of strong sales, earnings, and the guidance here. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley were standouts, as well as Bank of New York and PNC on the regional side had a very nice trade today. So that looks good, and so that kind of sets the tone here for a good earnings season, where the market had rallied coming into earnings season here with some gusto. So a little give back today, some selling on the news, but nice price action for most of those big names. We're seeing some a generally bullish tone here, Frank. We're going through some cyclical disinflation. A little bit slower labor market here, a little bit lower on shelter costs, and a little bit lower on energy costs. So so some of the larger components of the CPI index, which came in at a 2.6% annual rate, still, kind of in the middle of where the Fed would rather be lower. But, we've got some things coming here which will help out as well. This big, beautiful bill that's going to provide some fiscal stimulus here, some rate cuts, some tax cuts. We had a 30-year bond auction this week that actually went pretty well. Bid to cover was about 2.4, which is quite good. Although the yield on the 30 years up around 4.84, which continues to keep mortgage rates on the high end here. So we're seeing a steeper yield curve, which is normal, in an economy that's growing well. I don't expect the Fed to really do much on the way of rate cuts between now and March, maybe June, because things are perking along pretty well. Banks, they guided to a pretty healthy economy from their standpoint, from the consumer and business lending, credit demand, and defaults. It all looks pretty good. And like you said, the small caps really shined here. So there's to a new all-time high. The Russell hit a new all-time high so that's more of a risk attitude here, because a lot of the small caps, those are a lot of companies here that aren't making money, and they have very leveraged balance sheets. So there's definitely a rotation taking place, and certainly a bifurcation taking place also in high technology here, where chips and chip equipment and memory stocks have been on a tear, whereas software stocks have been in a major downtrend here because of the threat that AI brings to what is called the subscription sales model, the SaaS model, and so that's going on here. Several other things here, there's a lot of stuff to unpack this week. You had Novo, Wegovy pill just got cleared, so CVS, Costco, Amazon, they're going to start selling weight loss GLP pills for as little as $25 a month for insurance. That's strong. You got earnings coming out next week with Netflix, United Airlines, J&J, Schwab, Freeport, GE, Intel, and KLA-Tencor. So it's starting to get chunky here in the earnings season, Frank, and it's a good time to be long the market.
On there live with veteran market strategist Bryan Perry, editor of BryanPerryInvesting.com. And of course, the other big story of silver and gold, the Burl Ives trade, as we've been calling it for some time now, here well past the holiday season. Still record highs for both gold and silver this week. What are we to make of that, just at a time when we're told inflation is tame?
Well, you saw the gold and silver top out, about 36 hours ago, and then start to get back a little bit today. That's really, tied to, geopolitics here. There's again hot spots around the world here: Venezuela, Iran, Ukraine, Russia, and also the fact that central banks continue to print money as if there's no tomorrow. So there's, you have the constant pressure on fiat currencies, and with interest rates here, holding steady to expected to be lower, that also puts pressure on gold prices to move higher here, because lower rates on the short end pressure currencies further lower as well. So that's just a hedge that central banks and everyone and their brother is using as a constant here, not to mention because there's just a lot of uncertainty out in the world, and people want to have some form of what I call a trapdoor defense mechanism built into their portfolio.
All right. What about so-called digital gold? Bitcoin had a good week, right? Back at around 95.4 here at the moment is what I'm looking at. Ethereum at around just shy of 3,300, and Doge at 13.5 cents. What about the crypto action, which you also follow?
Well, it was doing really well, and then you had this this vote got turned down, this week here, and today actually here. There was there was supposed to be a vote passed by Congress here to basically make a bull case here for the digital asset market here, and this act was called the Clarity Act, and it didn't pass the scheduled banking committee vote, and it was abruptly postponed last night. I'm sorry, on Wednesday night. It was a big big withdrawal by the industry here, and Coinbase led that withdrawal. Brian Armstrong was the CEO, and basically it was saying it's a bad bill. That there's a lot of stuff that was jammed in there at the very end that it really was, corrupted what was what he considered to be the good spirit of the bill going forward here. And it was a basic attack on Trump, because he's seen as a pro crypto guy. And so, but in all reality, the fact that Bitcoin held up to the 95 level and Ethereum held around 3,200 was a good sign, telling me that it's a stall tactic, but I think that this will ultimately work its way through Congress and be proactive for the industry going forward here. So in general, it was a good week for crypto.
All right, and we've seen wilder predictions on where crypto goes from here. It's interesting to watch these prediction markets nowadays as well. But what's your thought on where Bitcoin goes this year?
Well, I think I think we've seen the lows, and I do believe that, with what's happening right now, that, we are starting to see some what they call whale money come back in here and starting to acquire Bitcoin at these in the low $90,000 level, the $95,000 level. So with that happening, I just think that there's a chance here that once this bill goes through and the market continues to, because Bitcoin is tied to the NASDAQ in general, they're highly correlated, Frank. It's not like digital gold at all. It's a speculative asset. So I think when we start to see the Mag 7 and the other big tech names start to rear back up here, because they've been in consolidation phase for several weeks, if not months, then I think you'll see, crypto take out the highs at 135 and keep going. I mean,
all right,
Bitcoin.
Closer to home, we're watching what's happening here in Hollywood with this Warner Brothers Discovery deal with Netflix. Looks like the folks there at Paramount Skydance still trying to take over Warner Brothers. We see a Warner Brothers stock hovering at around 28 and change here. Netflix at 88. And what about this drama here? And what are your thoughts about how this is going to play out?
Yeah, drama it is. Netflix, they're going to report earnings here this week, and I think it's going to be kind of not that influential on the stock, even though they're expected to grow revenues by 17% and earnings by 29%, which is awfully good for the size of the company that it is. And they're getting into all kinds of professional sports, and they really have a very exciting long-term story here. But if they can buy a 100-year-old studio and get this done properly, it's going to be a lot of litigation. But they may sweeten the offer just a little bit here, but it does seem like that's going to go their way. And I think the stock will start to catch a bid here. It's down roughly 30% off the high from where it was trading here, roughly four months ago. So I think it's putting in a base in here, and I think people should take a hard look at it here, because I do think they will end up winning this battle here and owning Warner Brothers Discovery here when it's all done and said. So just take a look at Netflix here. I think that actually they're going to deliver a very solid quarter. And again, they're going to offer a lot of clarity on where their deal stands here with Warner Brothers next week.
All right, it's been an eventful week. It was just a week ago that President Trump met with all those oil company executives at the White House, and since then Iran has been in upheaval, and we see drama playing out in Venezuela. So the price of oil and all this did move above 60 a barrel earlier in the week, but right now is below 60 again at 59.30. What about these oil names and the price of oil at this point?
Well, I think you fade the trade. I think, there's just too much supply out there in a world where OPEC is going to meet again, and I think they're going to raise production because, they've still got to pay their bills, and I just think that there's a lot of cheating in the system there also by Russia, and a lot of excess oil on the market that we don't know about, that finds its way to through India for refining, and then on its way over to China for at 30% below market value. So I'm not a buyer of oil in here. I think Chevron's been a good trade because they've been there the whole time, and Exxon made a new high. So those two integrated, fine, but everything else to me is looking like you're chasing it here if you're buying oil at these prices, because I think we will see crude, WTI crude, retrace back to around 55 to 52, and that's just going to weigh on the sector, Frank. I think between now and what we get into what is called one of these two shoulder seasons where you don't have a lot of travel between now and until May. Okay, so there's just a lower demand supply equation going on.
All right, and I mentioned at the beginning these small cap stocks, the Russell 2K ending the week, as a matter of fact, at an all-time high. Anything that's getting your attention in the small cap world?
Well, I would say that a good portion of the Russell 2000 are made up of financials, small community banks, and so it is interesting here that a year ago people were really wondering about the credit crisis and commercial office space, and all these banks were going to be hung out to dry, with all this office related real estate and tapped out consumer and businesses that were just having trouble qualifying for loans, and that whole narrative has changed. And so at the same time, you also have just a more risk-on atmosphere right now, because the Russell did lag the NASDAQ, Dow, and S&P for a long time, and is now just really broken out of a long-term base technically. So there's some short covering going on, but there's also some accumulation because, again, these are just they're more leveraged companies, and the market is looking at the GDP here growing between 4.5% to 5% over the course of the first 6 months of the year. If that holds true, then the Russell has a chance here to continue this trend. And it looks like a clean breakout from the upside here because it's on a very high volume, the IWM, which is the Russell 2000 ETF rank. So it looks legit.
Wow. All right. At this point, let me ask you the big question here, Bryan Perry. Any specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, on the buy side, Frank, I think people should really take a look at the fact that, I get calls all the time about how do I get into SpaceX? And the only really way to do that without paying a whopping premium over net asset value in some of these closed-end funds is the Barron Partners Fund, run by Ron Barron. And this is the symbol of Bravo, Papa, Tango, Romeo, X-Ray. And they have the two largest positions in that fund. The largest is SpaceX at roughly 26%. And the second largest position is Tesla, with about another 25%. And there's some other various positions under that. So people want to get into SpaceX. That is the way to do it here from a public basis because you can't buy stock now from the employees. No one's selling a share. I've been buying also, Invesco IVR, which is the mortgage real estate investment trust here, and it's a mortgage REIT. And because the spreads now between short-term borrowing and long-term investing is very wide now. The spread is widened out because what they do is they borrow money short and they invest in long-term mortgages here. So they make money on the spread here. IVR pays a 16% yield, and I put that recently in our cash machine portfolio. Also, I think it's a good time to continue to accumulate the rare earth story here. MP Materials here, we were picking up this week. Also, Nokia here, NVIDIA put $2 billion into Nokia stock and took a position in the company here. And they are, again, transforming themselves from just a telecom equipment provider to a data center connecting company here. And so Nokia at roughly $6.50 looks really good here. Goldman Sachs has like a $9, $10 price target on it. And so for those looking for a price of a leading name in that area, that looks good. And lastly, coming off, I took a trade on. I had a little bit of Nike on the books, and I took that off because it had a pop. There's some insider buying, but I think competition is so stiff, from on shoes and Viore and other names like that I just think that there's much going on there. And also Rocket Mortgage had a 95% profit in Rocket Mortgage. I think the Fed's not going to be lowering rates until June or July, and that stock ran up in anticipation of the Fed lowering rates here between now and March, and I think that stock looks a bit ahead of itself. So that's about that on those trades. I think that's where we're at here. But I would encourage people that if they do want to do the SpaceX trade to take a hard look at that Barron Fund.
Yeah, and the ticker symbol one more time. Did I get it right? BPTRX, is that right?
You got it. Yep, that's right.
Very interesting. And there's supposed to be a SpaceX launch tonight, by the way, out of Vandenberg Space Force Base, just after, I believe, around 8:20 or so this evening. So keep looking up, Los Angeles. We're going to see another rocket launch if everything goes as planned just after 8 o'clock this evening. And Bryan, that was a terrific update and very comprehensive update as always. Thank you very, very much for taking the call here, and wish you a great long weekend. Markets will be closed Monday for the federal holiday honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., so look forward to connecting with you again next week. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Okay, thanks very, very much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. That is Bryan Perry, editor of BryanPerryInvesting.com, also author of the 25% Cash Machine, live with us here on Motech on Money on 790.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriela Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
The CJ Pearson Show.
I'm CJ Pearson, and I'm the host of The CJ Pearson Show. Every week, we'll take on the biggest cultural, political, and moral battles in America head on.
From a perspective you won't hear on mainstream media.
No spin, no filters, and no apologies.
Straight talk and fearless, real perspective.
Family, faith, country, bold truth, real conviction, zero permission. This is The CJ Pearson Show.
The CJ Pearson Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
ABC. The Dow coming in for a closing loss today of 83 points, settling at 49,359. The Dow had started the week at a record high. The S&P 500 also record highs earlier in the week, pulling back 4 points at the closing bell today at 6,940. The Nasdaq down 15 at 23,515. The yield on the 10-year note now at 4.22%. Looks like gold and silver had another good week, with gold pulling back today, down about $22 at $46.01 and change. Silver had a big pop earlier in the week, pulled back more than $2 today, back to $89.94 an ounce. Crude oil futures moved above 60 a barrel earlier in the week, right now at $59.30 a barrel to close out the week. Taking a look at the Magnificent One, NVIDIA, down 82 cents at 186 and change. Warner Brothers Discovery shares of 9 cents at 28.58. Netflix down 5 cents at $88. Paramount Skydance down 30 cents at $11.80. Taking a look at the oil names, Chevron hovering at around 166.26 at the close of 10 cents today. ExxonMobil of 76 cents at 129.89. Checking the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin hovering at around 95,400. Ethereum just shy of 3,300, and Doge at the moment at 13.5 cents. Motaca Money continues here on 790 KABC. Great seeing everyone today at the Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill with Angela Marsden there, and the remote broadcast with John Phillips and Randy Wang and Susan Shelley from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. One big thing that came up today was what Rick Caruso might announce. Will he be running for governor? Will he be running for mayor? Well, he just posted on social media the answer. Let me quote what Rick Caruso just posted on his social media feed. He said, over the past year, I've reflected on how we can make Los Angeles and California stronger. He said, I've listened to people across industries and communities, and it's been an honor to hear their hopes and aspirations. He said, I'm deeply grateful to the countless people who encouraged me to run and who generously shared their time and energy. He continued the posting by saying, throughout these conversations, 2 questions have guided my thinking: where I can make the greatest impact and how a possible campaign for public office would affect my family. Rick Caruso writing, after much reflection and many heartfelt conversations with my family, Rick Caruso says, I've decided not to pursue elected office at this time. The answer from Rick Caruso, he's not running for governor and he's not running for mayor of Los Angeles. He said it's a difficult decision. He says, I'm deeply disappointed to step back from an election I believe is so critical to California's future. That's the posting just put out by Rick Caruso on various social media platforms. Stay tuned to 790 KABC for more on this big story. Taxes, of course, were a big subject of conversation today at the John Phillips, Randy Wang remote broadcast today with Susan Shelley. And joining us live now is the one and only Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, America's leading taxpayer advocate, who's following what's happening here in California very closely. Grover, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Oh, absolutely. Good to be with you.
All right. So Prop 13 was discussed today during the live broadcast, and SaveProp13.com is the website for people that want to try to save Prop 13, which has been under constant threat since it came into being back in 1979, as you well know. And this proposed billionaires tax, also a big deal here. So take it from the top and give us your impressions of what's happening here in California.
Well, I walked into politics about a couple of weeks before Proposition 13 passed in June 78. And I was the number 2 guy over at the National Taxpayers Union, just out of college. There weren't many of us at the American National Taxpayers Union at the time. Later, Reagan had me create the Americans for Tax Reform. But Proposition 13, and the country owes a real debt to Howard Jarvis, Joel Fox, who ran Howard Jarvis for so long, and Paul Gann, and the people of California who stood up and put a cap on the growth of property taxes, required a 2/3 supermajority for any tax increase. It really was the beginning of a tax revolt that swept Reagan into office and continued through the years. I mean, the reason why we got tax cuts in Washington, D.C. was that politicians saw how important it was to voters in California. I went to 18 states in 78, 79, all of them doing things along the lines of California. Then in Idaho, they had an initiative where they simply whited out California and typed in at an angle Idaho and ran that campaign. There really was an understanding of the leadership of Howard Jarvis and Paul Gann and California. And that's where your governor got up and said the world would end. There was no money. Turns out there was $4 billion in bank accounts that was hidden from the people of California. And almost a day or two after Prop 13 passed, the governor, we found $4 billion. And it wasn't a panic, but they just wanted the money. They didn't need it. They wanted it. The government did. And that taxpayer movement flooded across the country. And we're seeing that today. And what I've been working on is getting states to follow the model of Texas and Florida and Tennessee to move to zero state income tax. We had 8 states in the last 4 years become single rate taxes, have a flat rate tax. And Arizona is at 2.5%, single rate. Everybody in that state pays the same tax rate. So the envy doesn't work in that state. They don't raise taxes on some and not others. They either raise taxes on everyone or they cut taxes on everyone. And we know that the politicians are going to help us reduce taxes in that situation, but not if you can, if you can mug people one at a time, you can take them out of the room and say, I'm not going to tax you. Let me go work this other guy over. And too many Americans in the past would go, okay, as long as it's not me, I don't care. Now they realize they might, when they say they're going to tax the rich, what they mean is they'll tax them first, then you, shortly, as soon as they get done with the rich people. But South Carolina, yesterday I was there and met with the Speaker of the House in South Carolina. They just passed a bill to take their income tax to zero. As revenue comes in, instead of spending it, additional revenue will go to pay the income tax down so that it goes to zero over maybe take them a decade or 12 years to get that done. But with any significant growth, they can do that. And the Senate's going to pass it the next month or two. So, and I go next week to Missouri, where the governor there has said, my goal, my objective is to get to zero. And he's introducing legislation. I think I'm going to be testifying next Wednesday on that. Just again and again around Mississippi's voted to phase their income tax down to zero. That's done. They don't have to do anything more. It will phase down automatically. Same thing with West Virginia. Talked to the governor of West Virginia today. He's all excited about speeding up the process of taking West Virginia's income tax to zero. Oklahoma has passed a law to phase their income tax to zero. So has Kentucky. So there's some real movement in this country at the state level to take the income tax down. And now people are focusing on California's limits on property taxes and other states. We've made more copies of Proposition 13 and some of the other 13 states that have similar measures that they passed in the past, and sharing those with other states and saying, here, 13, 14 different ideas. Here's some things that worked, some things that didn't in each one. Take a look at what might fit your state. We've learned a lot from California, including what not to do, like wealth taxes.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you raise an important point. Didn't income tax start overall just on the high end, right? Only for billionaires, I guess. When it first started, I remember reading someplace that the what was it called, the Civil War tax started with those anyone making above $4,000 back in 1894. I know you're the expert on all that, but you're right to point out that right now it's targeted at billionaires if it ends up on the ballot, but ultimately it could lead to those who are not making $1 billion or more.
U.S. income tax top rate 7% when it passed, 7%. And you had to make, in today's dollars, and this is before Biden's inflation, by the way, so now it would be another 20% higher, $11 million a year you had to make before you paid the 7% income taxes. Now, 7% is half of what the lowest income taxpayer pays. So, oh yeah, we're only going to tax rich people. They lie again.
Yeah, isn't that something? So we're waiting to see if that's going to be on the ballot. In the meantime, about 100 billionaires are on the way out of California already to Florida and other
100?
states. That's what I've been reading. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, and
I remember
apparently
when.
Florida realtors are hearing from more people. According to one report I read this week, Florida realtors, South Florida realtors, hearing from more people from California than they're hearing from New Yorkers, where they have the socialist mayor there. Isn't that something?
Well, because the mayor can't raise taxes. He has to mow the governor into doing his tax increases. So, Governor, would you raise taxes and give me the money? I even think Democrat governors might go, wait a minute. Do I really want to start this game? Wow. I've heard a number that $1 or $2 trillion in assets had moved, that if you add up all the assets of some of the people that were leaving, but I had not heard the number of people leaving. That's look, what if the governor comes in and says, we're not doing this, and somehow he stops it? Do you think anybody who had planned to leave in the threat would come back and go, oh, I believe you'll never do that? I know with certainty they will do it. Maybe not this year, but soon.
Yeah. Grover, well, I have to say your name came up today at our big remote broadcast. Everybody loves you at the LA Taxpayers Association, Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. All of your fans had gathered there. I hope to see you back out here this year. Grover, thank you very, very much for taking the call with us live here this afternoon.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association. That is wonderful stuff there.
Appreciate it very much. Look forward to speaking with you again soon. That is Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, live with us here on Motac on Money on 790 KABC.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauley to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriella Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
American Skyjacker tells the story of D.B. Cooper copycat Martin McNally, who hijacked a plane and jumped out with $500,000. But that's just the start of this epic true crime saga. Now, American Skyjacker is an action-packed documentary available on all major platforms. Go to AmericanSkyjacker.com to subscribe to the podcast and watch the film. And look out for a new bonus episode of the podcast coming soon. American Skyjacker. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Motac on Money continues here, 790 KABC. Coming off the Golden Globe Awards last weekend, hot topics continue to be the future of Hollywood and the future of movie theaters in the age of the smartphone and AI. We also have some breaking news here this hour. Rick Caruso, the highly respected business and civic leader here in Los Angeles, has just announced he is not running for governor and not running for mayor of Los Angeles. He posted, public service does not require a title. It is and will always be, in his words, quoting his posting now, my calling, I remain devoted to serving our communities in every way I can, just from a different seat. Signed, Rick Caruso, posted just a little while ago. Joining us live now is Hollywood PR guru and author Michael Levine. Michael, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Mr. Motek, thank you very, very much for sharing your valuable audience with me, and I must confess to you, I just heard the news as you related, and it's heartbreaking. For those of us who care about Los Angeles and to some degree California, because we're interlinked, it's heartbreaking. Rick Caruso is a man, obviously, of world-class talent, and for us not to have the value of his service and elected office is heartbreaking, particularly as we witness the decay and decline of our city and state. It's just heartbreaking. So I don't know what else to say other than my heart is broken, because I think he could have been a valuable tool, at least in stopping the decay. The city and the state are so decayed that it's hard to imagine anyone improving it, but at least stopping the bleeding. So there we are.
his posting indicated he consulted with his family, and they decided that he was not going to be running for office, but certainly he still will be playing a prominent role here and as a leader of Steadfast LA, which is the organization really leading the recovery now in the Palisades at Malibu as well as Altadena, and he's done amazing things over the past year, and we had him on the air just about a week or so ago. He did indicate he would announce a decision at some point after that conversation we had live on the air, and here it is posted on social media that Rick Caruso has decided he will not be running for mayor of Los Angeles again or for governor of California. So that is the breaking news. Thank you for your initial reaction to that, Michael Levine.
And Frank, if I
Yes.
might add, this language that he's using, well, I'm not going to run, but I'll try to be of help in public service. It's lovely sounding, but it doesn't bear the weight that is necessary. Only elected office carries the weight. The mayor, the governor has the ability to do things that no private citizen can do, no matter how rich, influential, or well-meaning. So this idea that he's going to serve his community and a committee, and not really. I mean, it sounds lovely, and it's very face-saving, but it's meaningless. I mean, we're facing a 5-alarm fire, and you can't use a water pistol to put out a 5-alarm fire. You've got to use the full weight of every resource, including elected office.
P.S. That reservoir that he pointed out wasn't filled during the fire emergency last year apparently still hasn't been filled. I don't know if you saw that report this week, but
doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, hopefully we'll have a chance to get him on the line here at some point very, very soon. On the air live with Hollywood PR guru and author Michael Levine, who, of course, is a veteran here in Los Angeles and Hollywood. And Golden Globes last weekend, and the future of Hollywood very much in focus. Something else we want to talk to you about, as well as the future of movie theaters. I believe you've written about this, Michael. So, give us your thoughts here.
Well, it seems to me that as we witness the death of the movie theater experience in the traditional sense that we all knew, growing up 20, 30 years ago with the advent of streaming, that movie theaters are either going to not exist at all 10 years from now, or have to massively change. And my writing indicates that though prophecy is dubious business, I think that the change must be a much more luxury experience. It's got to, going to a movie theater in the future is going to have to feel much more like an experience than merely sitting in a dark room with sticky floors and sticky seats and sitting through 30 minutes of commercials and coming attractions and paying, $16 or $18 for the privilege. That model of what exists today is simply not sustainable. And that's really evidenced by the deeply declining movie attendance, right? If you take out blockbuster movies and you just look for ordinary movies and movie attendance, you'll see, the patient's on life support. So I think that the future will be a different kind of luxury experience with extraordinary, eating opportunities, dining opportunities, comfort opportunities, because you have to compete with the convenience of watching a movie at home in a, increasingly good environment. Home theaters are improved, and so my prediction is we're going to, now with the luxury experience is going to come luxury prices. So I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years from now going to a luxury movie theater could be $30.
First Class or Bust. Check out Michael Levine's article posted on social media. You've, I think, cited some examples of some luxury experiences already. IMAX, right? And Odeon and View and some other companies already. Any one of those that are especially attractive based on your experience?
Well, the model is simply this: people who are doing movie theaters that are doing business the same old way they did it 10 years ago are failing. And theaters who are trying different options, different modalities, and generally in the luxury arena are succeeding. It's really not complicated. So if, ask any friend you know, when's the last time you went to a movie theater? And the answer is either never, or not in the last year or two, or I went to see a blockbuster movie. Now, you take out blockbusters, the traditional movie, it's just over.
Yeah. Make it a blockbuster night. Michael, you're probably heading to the movies now, so we'll let you get going. And it's always great to have you with us. Thank you very much for coming to the line on all this, and appreciate it. Look forward to speaking with you again soon. That is Hollywood PR guru and author Michael Levine, live with us here on Motac on Money on 790 KABC. Have a great holiday weekend. I'll be back at more with 4 on Tuesday, right?
The UCLA men's basketball season's in full swing, and we need you to get to Pauley Pavilion to support the Bruins. Don't miss a single chance to see this year's exciting team, led by Donovan Dent, Eric Daly Jr., Sky Clark, and Tyler Bilodeau. Pauley Pavilion, presented by Westcon Financials, the home of the greatest tradition in all of college basketball. We can't wait to have you join us as the Bruins continue to build on that legacy. With big-time matchups, go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today before it's too late. Let's get Pauley rocking.